Once upon a time, in a small town on Earth, a young boy named Lucas lived a simple life. He was only 6 years old, but his heart was full of dreams, and his mind was always curious about the world around him. One bright afternoon, while playing near the old woods behind his house, Lucas came across something that he had never seen before, a small glowing craft, unlike anything human made. The craft softly landed on the ground, making a gentle hum. As the door of the craft opened, Lucas stepped back in awe, his heart racing with excitement. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw her, a girl, maybe a little older than him, but from a world far beyond his own. Her skin shimmered with a strange bluish tint, and her eyes sparkled like stars. Her long silver hair flowed like a river of moonlight. She was different, yet so beautiful in a way that Lucas couldn't describe. The alien girl stepped out of the craft, her movement graceful and calm. She looked at Lucas with a smile that made him feel both nervous and happy. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she studied him as if trying to understand this strange creature before her. Lucas, still stunned, finally managed to find his voice. "Who are you?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling with wonder. "I am Aria," she replied softly. "I come from a place far beyond your world. I was sent here on a mission, but now I am lost." Lucas, who had always been curious about the stars, asked her questions about her home, her people, and the stars she had traveled from. Aria patiently answered him, telling him stories about her home planet, its crystal forests, golden oceans, and floating cities. Lucas listened to her every word, fascinated by the idea that someone could come from so far away. As the day grew late, Lucas felt a strange sadness. He knew Aria couldn't stay forever. He had learned so much, but he didn't want her to leave. So, without thinking too much, Lucas made a promise. He stood up tall for his age, looked into her eyes, and said, "When I grow up, I will marry you. I promise." Aria looked at him with a mixture of surprise and amusement, her lips curving into a gentle smile. She knew he didn't understand what such a promise truly meant, but she also knew the sincerity in his heart. "We shall see, Lucas," she replied softly. "Maybe one day we will meet again." The moment felt magical, as though time itself had slowed down. As the stars began to twinkle above them, Aria climbed back into her craft. Lucas waved goodbye as the ship slowly lifted into the sky, disappearing into the vastness of space. From that day forward, Lucas never forgot the promise he had made. He kept it tucked away in his heart, believing that one day, when he was old enough, he would find a way to keep his word. And although he never saw Aria again, he would always remember the girl from the stars who had become a part of his world in the most unforgettable way. As the years passed, Lucas grew up into a curious and intelligent young man. He lived in the same small town, but his dreams had become much bigger than ever before. He spent his time reading books about space, studying the stars, and learning everything he could about the universe. He became fascinated with the idea that there were worlds out there beyond Earth, places filled with people and wonders that no one on Earth had ever seen. But even as he grew older, one thing remained constant in his heart: his promise to Aria. Every night before going to bed, Lucas would look up at the stars and think about the alien girl who had changed his life. He wondered where she was, what she was doing, and if she remembered the promise he made all those years ago. He often thought about how innocent it had been, just a childish vow made in a moment of wonder, yet it felt like something more to him. It wasn't just a promise. It was a connection that had never faded, no matter how many years passed. During high school, Lucas became known for his brilliance. He excelled in science and engineering, particularly in fields related to space exploration. His classmates admired his passion, though most of them didn't understand why he was so obsessed with the stars. Lucas often spent long hours in the school's library, reading books about advanced space travel, alien life forms, and the possibility of life on other planets. His dream was to build something that could take him to the stars, not just as a scientist, but as someone who might find Aria again. At the same time, Aria's life continued on her home planet. She, too, had grown up, though in a world that was far more advanced and ancient than anything Lucas could imagine. She had become a skilled diplomat, respected and admired by her people. Her heart, however, was often torn between her duties and the memory of the young boy she had met on Earth. She would visit the planet's archives, searching for any mention of a promise made between two worlds, but there was little to find. Her people believed that such connections between species were rare, and the idea of returning to Earth seemed impossible. Yet, even with her busy life, Aria couldn't forget the boy with the wide, curious eyes who had promised to marry her. She often wondered if he still remembered, if he still kept his word. But as time passed, she accepted that it might have just been a child's promise, one that couldn't be taken seriously. And yet the idea of returning to Earth, of seeing him again, was never far from her mind. Lucas, on the other hand, refused to let go of his promise. Every year, as his skills and knowledge grew, he knew that he was getting closer to fulfilling his childhood vow. He poured all his energy into building a ship, a vessel capable of reaching far-off planets and perhaps even finding Aria. But little did he know, the stars were waiting for him to make that next step, to fulfill the promise that had shaped his entire life. And so, as Lucas grew older and wiser, the promise he made so many years ago remained a guiding light in his life, leading him towards something far greater than he could ever have imagined. It was a typical evening when Lucas was in his workshop, surrounded by blueprints and tools, working on his latest project. For the past few months, he had been putting all his efforts into building a ship capable of reaching the farthest reaches of space. His dreams of finding Aria had only grown stronger with time, and despite the doubts that sometimes crept into his mind, he refused to give up on the promise he had made all those years ago. The evening air was cool, and the stars twinkled outside his workshop window. Lucas paused for a moment, looking up at the night sky, as he often did. His thoughts always drifted to Aria, wondering where she was, if she remembered him. But today, something felt different. There was a strange hum in the air, almost like the wind had carried a message. He turned back to his workbench, where his computer screen flickered to life. A new message had appeared in his inbox, one that seemed impossible. The message was encrypted, but Lucas's skills with technology quickly allowed him to break the code. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the name of the sender. It was from Aria. The message read, "Lucas, I remember your promise. Do you still stand by it? I have waited for so long to find a way back to you. The stars have brought me to you once more, and I need your help. I have much to explain, but I need you to come. Will you come for me?" Lucas sat frozen, staring at the screen. It was as if the universe had answered his silent plea. The years of longing, the endless nights of wondering if she would ever remember him, had led to this moment. Aria was reaching out to him. She hadn't forgotten, and now she was asking for his help. His mind raced with excitement. He quickly began to work, preparing for the journey that would take him beyond the stars, to the very place where Aria lived. His heart was filled with anticipation, but also with a deep sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about fulfilling a childhood promise anymore. Aria needed him, and this was his chance to prove that his feelings had never faded, that the boy she had met on Earth had become someone worthy of her trust. The message was brief, but it contained enough details for Lucas to start preparing. Aria's home was far, beyond the reaches of any known galaxy, and she hinted at trouble. She didn't explain everything in her message, but Lucas could feel the urgency in her words. He immediately set to work, assembling the parts of the ship that would carry him across the vastness of space. As he worked, his hands moved with a sense of purpose, knowing that this journey would be unlike anything he had ever done before. It wasn't just about science and technology anymore. It was about love, promise, and the hope that one day he could be with the girl he had always dreamed of. As the ship began to take shape, Lucas couldn't help but smile. The stars had brought him this far, and now they would carry him to the woman who had once captured his heart. And with every turn of the wrench and every line of code, he knew that this was just the beginning of an incredible adventure. Lucas worked day and night, the excitement of the message from Area driving him forward. His heart raced with every step as he worked to complete the ship he had dreamed about for years. The ship was no longer just a project. It had become his lifeline, the bridge between Earth and the alien world he longed to visit. He meticulously put together each part, ensuring everything was perfect. The journey ahead would be long, and there could be dangers, but Lucas didn't care. He had a purpose now, something far more important than any of the risks. The ship, which he named the Promise, was a sleek, silver vessel capable of traveling beyond the reaches of the solar system. It was built with advanced technology that he had worked hard to understand and implement. Every inch of the ship was designed with the goal of reaching Area, no matter what it took. When the ship was finally ready, Lucas stood at the entrance, staring at the vastness of the sky above him. His hand shook slightly, but his resolve was stronger than ever. He wasn't just embarking on a journey through space. He was setting out to fulfill a promise he made as a child. He climbed into the ship, powered up the engines, and watched as the Earth below became smaller and smaller. The stars were no longer just distant lights. They were the road he would travel to reach Area. The journey was smooth at first. Lucas carefully navigated the ship through the unknown reaches of space, following the coordinates Area had given him. For the first time in his life, he felt truly free. There was no turning back now. The Promise was guiding him. Every star that passed by seemed to shine brighter, as though they were encouraging him to move forward. Days turned into weeks. Lucas spent most of his time in the control room, monitoring the ship's systems, ensuring everything was working as it should. The isolation of space didn't bother him. He had grown used to being alone with his thoughts. His mind often wandered to Area. What was she doing? Was she safe? What did she need from him? These questions kept him focused, giving him the strength to keep going. As the weeks passed, the journey grew more difficult. The deeper Lucas traveled into space, the more unfamiliar the surroundings became. Strange cosmic storms and mysterious objects passed by, but Lucas managed to steer the Promise through them. There were moments of doubt, moments when the vast emptiness of space felt overwhelming, but he pushed through. He had made a promise, and there was no turning back. One night, as he looked out the window at the endless stars, he began to question what awaited him at the end of this journey. What if Area didn't remember? What if the Promise had been a childhood fantasy? But then he thought about the message she sent, the urgency in her words, and the connection they shared. He knew in his heart that this was real, that the bond they had formed as children was something unbreakable. With every passing day, Lucas grew more determined. His heart was set on one goal: to find Area and keep the promise he had made so long ago. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Lucas knew one thing for sure: he would not stop until he found her. After what felt like an eternity of traveling through space, the ship finally approached its destination. Lucas sat in the pilot's seat, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of stars that surrounded him. In the distance, he could see a planet, Area's home. The coordinates Area had sent him were spot on, and he felt a sense of relief and excitement rush through him. The ship descended slowly, the atmosphere of the alien planet growing closer. Lucas could hardly believe he was finally here, after years of waiting and hoping. He checked the systems one last time, ensuring everything was in order. His heart pounded as he steered the Promise toward the planet's surface. The planet itself was beautiful, unlike anything he had seen before. Towering trees with golden leaves stretched toward the sky, and strange, shimmering lakes glittered in the sunlight. The air was crisp and clean, with a faint scent of flowers he couldn't quite place. This was a world far different from Earth, but it felt peaceful. Lucas knew that he had made the right choice coming here. As he landed, he couldn't help but feel nervous. What would Area think? How would she react to seeing him after all these years? The young boy who had promised to marry her was now a grown man. He had changed, But would she still recognize him? Would she still remember the promise? The moment the promise touched the ground, the doors slowly opened, and Lucas stepped out into the unfamiliar terrain. His boots crunched softly against the ground as he took his first steps on the planet. He looked around, unsure of where to go or who to meet first. He had never been to this world before, but he knew that Area would be somewhere nearby. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching. His heart skipped a beat as he turned around. And there she was, Area. She was standing before him, just as beautiful as he remembered, though her appearance was more regal and commanding. Her hair, silver like moonlight, cascaded down her back, and her eyes shone with a wisdom that only years of experience could bring. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, looking at each other. Lucas was struck by how much she had changed. She was no longer the innocent girl he had met all those years ago. She was now a powerful woman, someone who had clearly seen much in her life. But her gaze softened when it landed on him, and Lucas could see a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "Lucas," Area said, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "You came." "I promised," Lucas replied, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I told you I would." Area smiled, but it was a bittersweet smile, one that held both joy and sadness. "I never expected you to actually come. So many years have passed." "I never forgot," Lucas said, stepping closer to her. "I made a promise, and I came to keep it." The air between them felt charged, and Lucas could feel the weight of everything that had passed since they last saw each other. But there was also a sense of hope, a feeling that their connection, no matter how many years had passed, had never truly been broken. Area reached out and gently touched his hand, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. In that moment, Lucas knew that the promise he had made so long ago was more than just a childish vow. It was a bond that had stood the test of time and distance. And now, as they stood together on her home planet, that bond would lead them toward a future neither of them could have imagined. As Lucas and Area stood together on her home planet, a sense of joy filled the air. For a moment, everything felt perfect. The years of waiting, the distance, the obstacles, they all seemed to fade. But that peace was short-lived. Area's people, a powerful and proud race, had rules, and those rules were not easily broken. The union between an alien and a human was unheard of, and many saw it as a threat to their traditions. Area had grown into a respected leader, known for her wisdom and strength. She had proven herself to her people time and time again, but even she knew that challenging the council would not be easy. As she and Lucas talked, planning how to move forward, a dark cloud began to form over their conversation. The alien council, the ruling body of Area's planet, had been watching them closely from the shadows. Soon, they'd made their presence known. The council's emissaries arrived in grand fashion, stepping down from their sleek ships with an air of authority. They were tall, their robes glimmering with intricate patterns that symbolized their status. Area knew that their visit was not out of goodwill, but rather to scrutinize her decisions. The leader of the council, a stern-looking alien named Lyros, stepped forward. His eyes, sharp and calculating, focused on Lucas as if trying to gauge him. "Area," he said, his voice cold and formal. "What is the meaning of this? A human on our planet? And you, one of our greatest leaders, have brought him here as if he were one of our own." Area stood tall, her voice unwavering as she faced the council. "Lucas is here because he is important to me. We have a bond that cannot be broken by your rules. He kept a promise he made to me when we were children, and I will not turn my back on that." Lyros raised an eyebrow. A promise made by a child is not enough to justify such an act. The laws of our people are clear. We do not allow such unions. This human cannot stay here. Area's heart sank. She had known that the council would not accept Lucas easily, but hearing them speak so harshly made her realize just how deep the divide was between her and her people. Lucas, who had been standing quietly beside her, stepped forward. His eyes were determined, and his voice strong. "I understand your laws," Lucas said, his voice steady. "But what I don't understand is why love should be something that is banned. I came here to keep a promise to Varia. I'm not here to threaten your planet or your way of life. I only want to be with the woman I love." The council members exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with his words. Lyros spoke again, his tone softening only slightly. "Your love may be genuine, but it is not enough to break the laws of our people. If you wish to remain here, you must prove that your intentions are pure." Lucas nodded. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Aria looked at him, a mix of admiration and sadness in her eyes. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. The council would not be easily swayed, and they would do everything in their power to keep her and Lucas apart. But one thing was certain. Lucas was not going to give up, and neither was she. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. It wasn't just about love anymore. It was about proving that their bond, no matter how impossible it seemed, was worth fighting for. The council was not about to give in easily. They demanded that Lucas prove his worth before they would allow him to stay on the planet. To them, a human was not fit to stand alongside one of their own, especially not the great Aria, who had earned her place among the highest ranks of her people. If Lucas wanted to be with her, he would have to prove that he could endure the same trials that any of their warriors would face. Aria stood by his side as the council made their decision. The trials would take place in the ancient arena, a place where the strongest warriors of her world proved their power and resolve. Lucas felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he heard the council's terms. He had no experience in combat, and he had never faced anything like the challenges that would await him. But his love for Aria was all the motivation he needed. "I don't care what the trials are," Lucas said, his voice firm. "I will do whatever it takes to stay here with you." Aria looked at him, her expression a mix of concern and pride. She knew how difficult this would be for him, but she also knew that Lucas had a strength within him that he had yet to fully realize. "I believe in you, Lucas," she said softly. "You've already shown that you are brave enough to come this far." The arena was a vast, open space surrounded by towering stone walls. The ground was hardened by centuries of use, stained with the marks of past battles. It was a place that held both history and danger. As Lucas stepped into the center, the crowd of Aria's people gathered around, watching him closely. He could feel their eyes on him, judging him, measuring his every move. The first trial was a test of physical strength. Lucas was pitted against one of the council's most skilled warriors. The warrior was tall and imposing, his muscles rippling under his armor. He moved with the confidence of someone who had fought countless battles and won every one. Lucas, on the other hand, was small and untrained in combat. His only weapon was his determination. The fight began, and immediately Lucas was overpowered. The warrior struck with precision, and Lucas struggled to keep his balance. For a moment, it seemed as though the warrior would easily defeat him, but Lucas refused to give up. He remembered Aria's words. "You've already shown that you are brave enough to come this far." That thought kept him going. With every blow, Lucas grew more focused. He knew that this wasn't just about strength, it was about endurance and heart. He dodged a blow, then another, finally managing to land a hit of his own. It wasn't a powerful strike, but it was enough to show the crowd that he wasn't just a human who could be easily dismissed. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. The warrior's attack slowed, and Lucas could see the doubt in his opponent's eyes. In the end, it wasn't about strength alone. It was about willpower. Lucas had the heart to keep going, even when it seemed impossible. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to prove that he belonged, that he was worthy of standing by Aria's side. When the trial ended, the crowd was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, they began to clap. The council watched with quiet approval. Lucas had passed the first test. Aria, standing off to the side, couldn't help but smile. She had always believed in him. Now, Everyone else would see the strength he possessed, not just physically, but in his heart, and that strength would carry them both forward, no matter what trials came next. The trials had only just begun, but the weight of the situation was already becoming clear. Lucas had proven his strength, but that was only the first step. As he stood in the arena, victorious but exhausted, a new, more dangerous challenge was approaching. The peaceful world of Aria's people, once calm and serene, was now on the brink of war. The council, though impressed with Lucas's resilience, had other worries. A powerful neighboring empire, the Xelvar, had been growing more aggressive, threatening the stability of their planet. With the galaxy on the edge of conflict, Aria's position as a leader had become even more critical. She was now expected to lead her people into a battle they had long hoped to avoid. As the news of the Xelvar's attack reached the council chambers, panic began to set in. The alien empire was vast, ruthless, and known for its brutal tactics. The council immediately began preparing for the worst, but Aria felt a deep sense of responsibility. This was not just a fight for her people, it was a fight for the future of the galaxy. Lucas, having survived the trials and earned his place, was now facing a new role in Aria's world. Though he had no experience with war, his skills in technology and strategy made him invaluable. Aria knew that he could help her people defend their world, even if it meant stepping into the heart of the battle. "What can I do?" Lucas asked Aria, his voice filled with determination. "I've trained my whole life for something like this. I won't sit back while you fight." Aria looked at him, her eyes filled with both admiration and sadness. She knew that Lucas wasn't just offering his help, he was offering his life. The war would be dangerous, and there was a real chance he might not return. But she also knew that they needed him. His human ingenuity could give them the edge they needed to stand against the Xelvar. "We need your skills, Lucas," Aria said, her voice steady but heavy with the weight of the decision. "I've seen your strength and your courage. Now, I need you to help us build weapons and defenses that can withstand the Xelvar's attack." Lucas nodded without hesitation. The boy who had once promised to marry her was now a man, ready to fight for her and for her world. The days that followed were filled with preparations. Lucas worked alongside Aria's best engineers and soldiers, designing advanced weaponry and battle strategies that would give them a chance. The people of the planet, once skeptical of him, now saw him as a leader, someone who could help them in their darkest hour. The tension between the two empires was growing. The Xelvar had already begun their march toward Aria's planet, and they would not stop until they had conquered it. Aria, Lucas, and the rest of her people knew that their survival depended on how they responded to the coming storm. The night before the battle, Lucas stood alone on a high balcony, looking out over the city. The stars above seemed distant, as if even they couldn't help them now. He thought about Earth and the long journey that had brought him here. He thought about his promise to Aria and how much he was willing to risk to keep it. Aria joined him, standing silently at his side. They both stared out at the stars, knowing that the next day would change everything. They were no longer just two children with a promise. They were two warriors, bound by duty and love, ready to face whatever came next. The war was about to begin, and with it, their fight for the future of their worlds. The dawn broke over Aria's planet, casting a pale light over the landscape. Lucas stood at the front lines, his heart racing with anticipation. The Xelvar had arrived, their massive warships blocking out the stars. The air was thick with tension, and every warrior stood at the ready, prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of the planet. Lucas had never imagined himself in a war, yet here he was, standing side by side with Aria and her people, ready to fight for the woman he loved and the world he had come to care for. The Xelvar were formidable. Their ships were larger and more powerful than anything Lucas had ever seen. Their warriors were ruthless, trained in tactics that left no room for mercy. But Aria's people had something that Xelvar didn't: unity and determination. Lucas, despite being human, had earned their trust and respect. and now he was fighting alongside them, leading the effort to defend their world. The battle began with a thunderous roar of cannons as the Selvar warships fired upon the planet's defenses. The sky lit up with explosions, and the ground shook as the first wave of enemy troops landed. Arya, standing at the helm of her forces, gave the order. The warriors charged, and Lucas was right there with them, armed with the technology he had helped develop. The first few moments were chaos. Lucas fought with everything he had, using the gadgets and weapons he had designed to counter the enemy's superior strength. His mind raced as he moved through the battlefield, guiding Arya's forces with the strategies they had planned together. Each move was calculated, each action designed to wear down the enemy, but the fight was brutal. Amid the chaos, Lucas spotted Arya. She was leading a group of soldiers, her face determined and fierce. Seeing her in action reminded him of why he was fighting. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about protecting the woman he loved, the promise he had made all those years ago. He couldn't afford to lose her. Not now, not after everything they had been through. A loud explosion shook the ground near him, and Lucas was thrown to the ground. His vision blurred, and for a moment, he thought he might have been knocked unconscious. But as he struggled to stand, a shadow fell over him. The Selvar had broken through their defenses, and one of their top commanders was advancing, a towering figure covered in thick armor. Lucas gritted his teeth. He wasn't going to let this be the end. He reached for his weapon, a modified energy rifle, and aimed it at the Selvar commander. He fired, the shot landing perfectly on target, but the commander barely flinched. Instead, he swung his massive weapon down at Lucas, knocking him backward. Arya saw Lucas fall, and her heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, she charged toward the commander, her blade raised. With a swift strike, she disarmed the giant alien and stood between him and Lucas, her eyes fierce with determination. "Stay down, Lucas," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise of the battle. But Lucas, bloodied and bruised, didn't stay down. With a surge of strength, he pushed himself up and grabbed his weapon. Together, they fought back the commander, combining their strength and skills. The battle wasn't over, but they had made a stand. Arya looked at Lucas, their eyes locking for a moment. In that glance, they both knew the truth. They were stronger together. The fight continued, but as the day wore on, it became clear that the Selvar forces were being pushed back. The strength of the bond between Arya and Lucas, the love and the promise, had become a symbol of resistance for the people. The Selvar had underestimated the power of unity, and they had underestimated the power of love. As the battle raged on, Lucas and Arya fought side by side, each determined to protect what they had fought for. The war was far from over, but their hearts were stronger than ever. And with each victory, they moved closer to a future where they could finally be together, no matter the odds. The battle had been long and fierce, but the tides of war had finally turned in their favor. The Selvar forces, once so sure of their dominance, had been defeated. Arya's people, with the help of Lucas and his quick thinking, had stood their ground and proven that love, determination, and unity could overcome even the most powerful enemies. The war was over, and peace had been restored to the planet. In the aftermath of the battle, the people celebrated their victory, but for Lucas and Arya, the true victory was not just in defeating their enemies. It was in the promise they had made to each other. They had fought together, sacrificed together, and survived together. Now, after everything they had been through, it was time to honor that promise. The day of the wedding arrived. It was a quiet, peaceful morning, the air fresh and calm after the storms of war. The people of the planet gathered in the great hall, their faces full of hope and joy. The atmosphere was filled with excitement, but there was also a sense of reverence. This wedding was not just a union of two people, it was a symbol of the strength and resilience of both Earth and Arya's planet. Arya stood at the front of the hall, her dress shimmering in the light. It was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen before. A flowing gown made of delicate iridescent fabric, that seemed to change colors with every movement. Her silver hair was tied back in a simple yet elegant braid, and her eyes, though tired from the battles they had fought, shone with love and happiness. She looked every bit the queen she was, but to Lucas, she was simply the woman he had promised to marry all those years ago. Lucas, dressed in simple but elegant attire, stood beside her, his heart pounding. He had never imagined that this moment would come, and yet here he was, standing with the woman he loved, ready to make the final promise that would bind them together forever. The ceremony was simple, yet deeply meaningful. The leader of the council, who had once disapproved of their union, now stood before them, acknowledging the love and strength they had shown. "We have witnessed what true love can accomplish," the leader said, his voice filled with respect. "And we are honored to witness the bond between Arya and Lucas today. May it be a bond that lasts for all time." As the vows were exchanged, Lucas took Arya's hand, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I promised you when we were children that I would marry you, and I kept that promise. I will always stand by your side, through whatever comes." Arya smiled, her eyes shining. "And I will always stand by you, Lucas. No matter where we go, no matter what challenges we face, we will face them together." The crowd cheered, and the moment was filled with joy. Lucas and Arya shared a gentle kiss, sealing their vows. It was a kiss not just of love, but of victory, the victory of a promise kept, the victory of two worlds coming together. The celebration that followed was a joyful one, with music and dancing filling the air. Arya's people, once uncertain of Lucas, now saw him as one of their own. They celebrated not only the end of the war, but the beginning of a new era, one where love had bridged the gap between worlds, and where two people, no matter how different, had found their place in each other's hearts. For Lucas and Arya, the journey was just beginning. The universe was vast, and there would be many challenges ahead. But together, they knew they could face anything. The promise made so many years ago had led them here. And now, hand in hand, they looked forward to a future full of hope, adventure, and love.